United stand. How are we all doing this evening? Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are targeting 5 January transfer targets as they look to improve on what has been a catastrophic season for United so far. And when I say 5, it doesn't mean we're going to sign 5. As we know, we saw with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his press conference reaction this afternoon, which I did. If you haven't seen the preview and the press conference reaction, he did say 1, maybe 2, maybe no transfers in January because it's very difficult to do January transfer business. But the interesting article in the Evening Standard talking about United looking at 5 targets, and to be honest with you, I pretty much know for a fact that 2 of them are being looked at by Manchester United. Mandzukic, James Madison, Emre Can, Richarlison and Haaland are the 5 players that United are looking at for January. And each of them in their own way is either possible or not possible. But also, just very interesting, I want to get into this straight away before we talk about those individual players. A very interesting line in the statement. It says that United sources have said Solskjaer is so determined to sign the right player that he'd rather do without in the short term. And it comes across as if it's coming from the club in a really proud way. Solskjaer would rather not get anybody than get the wrong player. Hello, have you seen the situation we're in? I mean, it sounds really great and noble, doesn't it? Solskjaer would rather get nobody than get the wrong player. But hey, look at what we're doing with nobody. Like, you know, to be honest with you, I'd rather get a signing that was okay than deal with what we've got at the moment. So I think that's these sort of statements coming out of the club are a little bit futile and a little bit shallow, because to say Solskjaer would rather get nobody than get the wrong person, well, to be honest with you, it's worth the risk, isn't it? Because what you're basically saying is they want to be sure that they're bringing the right player in instead of taking another risk. But mate, you're playing Mata, Lingard and Pereira at number 10. You know, sign me, I'll do a better job. That's a joke, by the way. But what I'm saying is that risks happen with every bloody signing. If you're going to wait for the perfect anything in life, you're probably going to be disappointed. It's like being in a disco and a quite a good looking girl comes over to you, but she walks with a bit of a limp. Oh no, I'm going to wait for something perfect. It might never come. That could have been the love of your life. So you've got to take a risk. You've got to take a risk. And I don't like the fact that that sort of statement, if it's true, is coming out and it's a really proud statement. Solskjaer would rather have nobody than get the wrong player. But have you seen where we are in the league table? We can't afford that sort of patience that everybody is focusing on, is what I'm trying to say. Because the reality is, if you look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's signings, we know that Bruno Fernandes was available in the summer. What are we saying? I'd rather not have Bruno Fernandes and stick with... I mean, actually, there's the statement. I'd rather not have Bruno Fernandes and stick with Mata, Pereira and Lingard until I get the right number 10. Well, who is the right number 10? I mean, how right do you want them to be? Oh, I'd rather wait for James Madison in a year's time. So basically, we're now a club that will write a season off. That's what that statement says to me. We'd rather wait for the right player and stick with what we've got than get a different player. Well, all right, so we'll just mess up a whole season waiting for James Madison, will we? Because I think that's the number 10 that he wants. But in the meantime, we just write seasons off. I didn't realise Manchester United could write a year off in their history. I didn't realise any football club would do that. But on a positive, before we get into these players, what I do want to say is that, and welcome to Simon Cliff, the latest member of the United Stand Members Club. Welcome, mates. You can join by clicking the join button. What I would say about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and you know, there's a lot of negativity around at the moment. I want to just say something positive here. I was thinking about this earlier on, and in context of transfers specifically, let me just say this, because I did say it back in March. We all expected a massive, massive summer for Manchester United. We all did, and we didn't have one, and it was very, very disappointing. We didn't get any midfielders in. But what I did say in March, when we appointed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think he got the job towards the end of March, didn't he? I said, is it enough time to get the players that you want in the summer? Because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer only got the permanent job at the end of March, which means then he will start talking about his transfer targets. Is that enough time? I mean, we said about a director of football, they would need 6 months before a transfer window to really have a look at the club and see what's available. So maybe Solskjaer didn't really have enough time in the summer to get everything that needed to be done. I don't know whether I'm making excuses there, but you know, he's talking about next summer. It's a massive summer for United. Please no Zlatan, as I've heard young mobile players, other things. Sancho, we are in a tight race to sign him since when, says Ray Cowley. Oh, people talking about Sancho are talking about their backside, to be honest with you, aren't they? I mean, why would Jadon Sancho come to Manchester United? It's all if, buts and maybes, isn't it? You know, if I was married to a millionaire, I'd be rich. You know, if, but. You know, Sancho's not coming to United in the current state. I wouldn't. Well, I would, because I love Manchester United. But I mean, who's going to want to come to our club at the moment? It's a load of nonsense. We'll sign no one, says Stephen Bahari. But look, what we have here is what I was talking about this afternoon. It's that get expectations up and then drop them on the floor. Talking about Sancho again just gets people excited. But why would Sancho come to our club? And also, they'll keep feeding out these stories about players that we're in for, because as they said in their own shareholder meeting last month, transfer news drives loads and loads of social media interaction around Manchester United. I mean, look, I've got to be cynical here and say, these people who run our football club, they are not football people. They probably don't even support our club. Has anybody actually answered the question, is Ed Woodward a Manchester United fan? Is he bollocks? I mean, what's his background? Is he a Manchester United fan? I bet he is now because we pay him so much money. But, like, we're fans of Manchester United. We're passionate about Manchester United. These people are bank managers, right? So if they know that they can make money from transfer news, they're going to generate transfer news. They'll deny it till the cows come home. They'll deny that they leak information out into the press. But they do have journalists that they have close relationships with. Manchester United Football Club has got loads of different departments in there. It's got communications, marketing, advertising, I mean, all sorts, right? And there's so many people in there, and they do talk to, you know, if they want to leak something out about, it's not even a leak, if they've got something like a new kit launch or something to do with the foundation, they've all got relationships with journalists that have been built up over many years. Simon Stone is a BBC journalist, and he's had a close relationship with United. The Manchester Evening News will have links in with them. Most outlets do, and they will work on those relationships to make sure that they keep them. And United can feed information out, and then they know for a fact that transfer news gets people happy. So when you're in a position of the fan base being fed up and a fan base that's scrutinising the owners, of course they're going to feed out transfer news. And you know the great thing about transfer news is, I know Jadon Sancho's mother's brother's sister's wife's cleaner, and they said that Jadon Sancho is coming to Manchester United in May. When he signs for somebody else in May, he changed his mind at the last minute. It's brilliant, isn't it? But you can still generate a story from it. Other teams are constantly buying new players that succeed, and we are reluctant to buy anyone. Pep made mistake signings and replaced them, says Gordon Murray. And Anaban Sarkar Metal Punch Studios, big name, says, big fan from India. I need to change the play formation, and we need to change the play formation and get Ziyech as well. What a player, and how can I buy the United Stand t-shirt? I don't think I've got the link in the video description, mate, but it will be in... go back to one of the videos from this week, the one where I was wearing the 99 shirt, and I think it was Monday, and the link's in the video description for that. I haven't put it in today. Lingard is stealing a living, says Addy07, and I'm from the Netherlands and I see Ziyech in real life, says Jen Lemons. Well, I was very impressed last night with Ziyech and Van der Beek, and both of those players would be absolutely perfect for Manchester United. They're both footballers, they both give 100%, they're both tenacious, and they're both, as I said, very, very good, so they would suit Manchester United, but we're not linked to them. And Ziyech was available for 30 million in the summer, but don't worry, I'd rather get nobody than take a risk. That's basically the message coming out of Man United at the moment. Norwich's manager highly rated. How about that? Says Danny Laxi121. I don't know, Danny. How about it? Declan Rice is so overrated, says Exora Gaming. I'd rather have pasta. And Madison and Calvin Phillips, number 10, and CDM. This is Kevin Wendell Crumb. I like James Madison, and I think if James Madison came to Manchester United, it would be a good signing. But I definitely think he's overhyped. I do. I don't think he's this. I think people are putting him on the same page as Dybala, or a Bernardo Silva, or a David Silva, or a Kevin De Bruyne, or they're putting him on that pedestal. He's not that. James Madison is a decent English player who's not even pinned down his place in the England national team yet. He's a good player. He's not going to come up to Manchester United and score 20 goals and get 20 assists. He's a work in progress player. And United seem to be focused on these sort of players at the moment. But let me go through this because, I mean, look, let me talk about Havertz first of all. The German midfielder, 20 years of age. I think a lot of people would like to sign him. He's been in talking about his future and quite, obviously, people have twisted that story to say he could come to United. I mean, what I saw from that interview is that, look, he thinks that the preparation that he's had, that he can play in other leagues. But he was asked about Toni Kroos wants him to go to Real Madrid. He'd suit Barcelona's style. But he spoke exactly where I think he's going to go, Bayern Munich. And he was like basically saying, look, Bayern Munich is the club. It's the pathway to go to if you want to play for the German national team and you want to stay close to family and friends. I think he'll end up at Bayern Munich because that's what Bayern Munich do. I don't really have a lot of time for Bayern Munich, but what they do in their league is what United should have been doing for years. They hoover up the talent in their league. Unfortunately, the Premier League's become so big with so many teams in there now that you can't do that as easy as Bayern Munich can. Bayern Munich just hoover up all the best talent in the Bundesliga, and I think that's where Havertz will go. And we saw this with Goretzka. We spend 6 months to a year saying we should get him, we should get him, we should get him, and they just end up going to Bayern Munich. So Havertz won't be coming to Manchester United, and I agree with Tyrone Williams. I think we need to move on from that. So let's talk about the 5 players in January that we've been linked with. Haaland has, his dad's actually spoken, and this is quite an interesting. I think Haaland is the player to go for. Scoring goals for Salzburg, still very, very young. I think he's actually only 19, 6'3", got loads of development in him. His dad has basically said, we're in no hurry. He's actually ahead of where we thought we would be at this stage of his career. He's playing regularly in the Champions League with Salzburg, so he's actually ahead of where he needs to be, but he's built for the Premier League, and that's probably the path he's going to go down. That's from his father, Alf-Inge Haaland. And I just want to say here straight away, there are some United fans who think that Alf-Inge Haaland, because Roy Keane did a bad tackle on him when he played for City and Keane played for United, that Alf-Inge Haaland would stop his son coming to Manchester United. I mean, that would be ridiculously stupid. Roy Keane doesn't even have a good relationship with Manchester United anymore. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managed Haaland at Mulder, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the manager of Manchester United at the moment. So this, for me, is the perfect deal to do. And also, this nonsense that Salzburg want £80 million. If Salzburg were given £80 million for a player, that would last them for the next millennium. This is £80 million for Salzburg. They cannot demand that sort of money for a player. You are not going to buy a player from Austria for £80 million. That's not going to happen. I mean, what's the record signing from the Austrian league? It's I don't know. Maybe it could be up to 60. I don't know. But the reality is, at top price, Haaland's going for 60 million. I don't think he'll even go for that. I think he'll go for 40, because that sort of money for Salzburg is huge. Madison's good, but so much better value in Europe, says Ivor Hardy. Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree on that. He scored a penalty yesterday, Haaland. But he might go to City, says Dave Tapgun. I don't think City would go for that sort of player, because I think Haaland is a little bit like Madison. Definitely the right player we should be looking at. But people think he's the next bloody Ronaldo. I'm talking about the fat one. Like, they think he's going to be like one of the world's best players. That isn't written in Haaland's future clear. It could happen, but he's not the next Mbappe or something like that. Man City will go for that sort of player. Man City won't go for Haaland because actually his size and everything doesn't really fit in with tiki-taka football. So he won't be going to City. He's not the sort of player City would go for. Liverpool could look at him as a backup striker, I would say. And I certainly think teams like Spurs might be interested in him, maybe an Arsenal. But United can win those races. I think that Haaland's the perfect player for United. If they've genuinely got money, he ticks all the boxes. He's worked with Ole before. He's young. He's got the potential to be fantastic. And he would work well in the setup that we've got, because he can share the load with other strikers who are young, like Greenwood, Rashford and Martial. He, to me, would be absolutely perfect. And there's a good point there from Sharon Bell, who says, well, who's going to make the most impact? And I think Haaland would make the most impact, because it's not just about the impact somebody makes on the pitch. A lot of it is that, but it's the impact a signing makes. You know, a signing can change the mood of the club, which is why the club spends so much time putting transfer news out there, because it generates positivity. You know, like if you see that Jadon Sancho might come to Manchester United, ooh, you get a bit excited, party time. And the reality is it's very unlikely to happen. But if Haaland came, well, let's look at the other example, Mandzukic. And I've been told, and look, take this with a pinch of salt, because we know what happened with the Bruno Fernandes thing. I was absolutely convinced that was going to happen, and to this day I really am stunned that we didn't sign him. But you know, United didn't. You know, what we hear from United is they didn't like the look of Bruno Fernandes because he takes too many risks. We've now got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer over the last few weeks saying we're not taking enough risks. But I've heard that United are going all in for Mandzukic. They really want to try and get that deal done, and Mandzukic is humming and hawing about it. I mean, one, why are Man United going all in for a 33-year-old? And two, he's never played in the Premier League. And three, what is long-term about a player like that? And 4, if he's umming and ahhing about it, why are we going for a player like that? And 5, he's expensive and we're going to have to pay him big wages and a transfer fee, although it'll only be about 9 million. But Mandzukic is looking like the player that United want this summer. If you compare Mandzukic with Haaland, Haaland's not even 20 yet. Mandzukic is 34 next May, never played in the Premier League, got no future path. Haaland, 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 Haaland. And, like, you know, if you drop them both into the team, I'll put my hands up and say, in the short term, Mandzukic might do a better job than Haaland. But in the long term, Haaland will do a far better job. And also, in relation to the signing, the buzz and optimism from the fan base is going to be far more excited with Haaland than it is with Mandzukic. So, yeah, the impact would be Haaland for me. Josh Rechana says, it's got to the point where I'd feel guilty if we bought on a good talent. Our club is undeserving at the moment, being run into the ground. Interesting comment there from Josh. And I think Keita is the record signing in Austria for about 30 million. Thanks for that, Christian B. I knew somebody would come up with that. And Jonah Anderson, I didn't say that Roy Keane ended Alf-Inge Haaland's career, because he didn't. It was the wrong knee. It was the other knee that did his career in. I didn't say that. I said he gave him a bad injury. I didn't say he ended his career. There is a myth out there that Roy Keane ended Alf-Inge Haaland's career. He didn't. What I would say is, though, he did knacker his knee up and it might have caused weakness in the other knee. But the reality is he got a red card for it. It wasn't like there was anything hidden about it. He did it because, and here's a little bit of nostalgia for you, when Arsenal won the double in '98, United would have won the double that year, but Roy Keane got injured quite early in that season against Leeds away. He went to tackle Haaland and twisted his knee and did his cruciate ligaments, and while he was on the floor in agony, granted, I think Roy Keane was trying to foul Haaland. Haaland went up to him and had a go at him on the floor while he was writhing in agony. And look, you know, you could say it's petty to go and injure him back, but that's the personality that Roy Keane was, and that you can't moan about that personality, because that personality is what made us a great team for many years. So it's positives and negatives. There is no such thing as perfection. Gordon Murray says Gordon Murray says we lack quality, but we'd rather lack quality than sign the wrong player. Exactly. That's apparently what we would do. And Mohamed Jawad says even if we buy Haaland, we'll still play Rashford up front. Well, look, whether the manager is going to be the right person or not, I don't know. I spoke about that this afternoon, didn't I? But so we've spoken about Haaland, we've spoken about Mandzukic, and I think those two players are very, very interesting. The other 3 players are James Madison, which we've spoken about. I cannot see James. So if you're joining us a little bit late, there's an article today in the Standard saying that Manchester United have got 5 transfer targets in January. And I do want to talk about whether there could be other people outside of that 5 in a moment. But these 5, to be fair, do look highly likely that we're looking at them. So Haaland, Mandzukic, Madison, Richarlison and Emre Can are the 5 players. We've spoken about Haaland, we've spoken about Mandzukic, we've touched on Madison a bit, and we'll touch on him a little bit more. Don't get excited. It's not going to happen in January. I mean, look at Leicester. They're 10 points clear of us. They're 6 points clear of Arsenal. If they beat Arsenal on Saturday, they'll be 9 points clear of them into the end of November after the international break. They're looking like Champions League football. Leicester, in January, can say, swivel on that. Swivel on it. Because you can offer us 100 million for Madison, and God forbid we don't, because he's not worth that. But Leicester would never, ever, ever sell James Madison in January. That's just not going to happen, because Leicester have got a great chance of Champions League football. And if you sell James Madison, regardless of how much they give you, even if they bring in a better player as a replacement, what if that better player takes a while to adjust? You've got to keep the continuity. And Brendan Rodgers will probably say, you can go to Manchester United in the summer if you want to, but you're not going in January. So it's ended the conversation with Madison. There is no way that will happen because of how well Leicester are doing. And United would have to pay ridiculous money for it. And to be honest with you, United would have to barter for James Madison, because otherwise they're going to get bent over, aren't they? They're going to have to do that. And what I would say as well is, I want to just bring this in as well. There is this misconception, I believe, that people think that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a brilliant recruiter of players. I've even had this argument with Flex. Daniel James was recommended by Ryan Giggs. So let's get that straight. Ryan Giggs recommended Daniel James. So that was nothing to do with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer other than saying, yes, let's sign him. It wasn't like Ole scouted him. Ryan Giggs did it. So that's one signing. Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire are obvious signings. They're good signings, and I like all three of our signings, but let's not reinvent the wheel and pretend that Ollie would like to reinvent the wheel. He'd like to be back at the wheel, wouldn't he? But let's not pretend that Ollie's three signings in the summer were in any way inspired genius by him in his football knowledge. Dan James came from Giggs. Wan-Bissaka is an obvious signing, and so is Harry Maguire. And they were very expensive at that point. They're very good signings. They're both very, very good signings, and I like them both. But we spent 80 million on Harry Maguire. Bit of a giveaway that he's an obvious signing when you're spending 80 million pounds on an English centre-back. And 50 million pounds for a Crystal Palace right-back. I don't think we overpaid on either of them, but we paid a lot of money because it was obvious that they were worth that fee. If we went and spent 50 million on Aarons from Norwich, you'd like go, what are we doing? Who is he? You know. The fact that they were so expensive shows you that they were obvious signings. So I think the jury's still out on what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can do as a manager, in not only on the pitch and where we are, but I also think in relation to transfers. They're good. They're three good transfers, but too many fans cling on to it and go, we've got to stick with him for longer because look at the signings he made in the summer. And look, you know, search your heart, search your soul, and when you find me there, you'll search no more. Classic, but sorry for that. But search your heart, search your soul. I like Ollie, as many of you know, but let's not pretend he's some transfer genius. Oh, we've got to give him another couple. I even hear ex-players and journalists saying you've got to give Ollie 2 or 3 more transfer windows because he's proven he's very good in it. Why? How has he proven it? Oh, I need a right back. 50 million quid. Wan-Bissaka. Oh, I need a centre back. 80 million quid. Harry Maguire. They're obvious. They're obvious signings. Jamie Vardy, goals, fight and swagger. Sign him up, says Russell Thompson. I'd rather have Vardy than Mandzukic. I think he's younger as well, but I wouldn't have either. Haaland equals West Brom era Lukaku. We don't need a target man. Won't fit the apparent philosophy we're going for. It's lazy scouting and frustrating, says Jowen Daniel. And Simon Cliff, Mark, we won't sign anyone in January as it takes 4 to 6 weeks for Woodward to sign players. This is what we get when the club is run by non-football people. Very good point from Simon Cliff, actually. The January transfer window is only 4 weeks old, and Woodward does tend to need 6. So we've spoken about Madison, we've spoken about Mandzukic, and we've spoken about Haaland. Let's talk about the other 2 options. Shad has mentioned Longstaff. We'll talk about him in a moment. Emre Can is definitely a player that Manchester United should be looking at, and I actually wouldn't mind us signing him. I know that's controversial, and I know in the summer I said no, but let's just remember, it is not flip-flop, and people will start saying flip-flop now. It is not flip-flop to change your mind in life. It is flip-flop to change your mind every 10 minutes. And we all know what club does that. United fans are not flip-flop. We are being presented with a very harsh set of changing circumstances which will change our opinions. Stephen Lazarus says thoughts on Julian Draxler. He's alright. A couple of years ago I wouldn't have minded him, but he's not really what I would look at now. Although I would do, because he's better than a lot of what we've got. And that's perfect. It feeds into this. When you look at the summer when the season ended, we were like, hopefully we're going to get Ollie back at the wheel. Hopefully we're going to sign a few midfielders. Let's aim high. And let's not forget, at the start of the summer, we got that great line. You'll be surprised at the quality of players that want to come to our club. Yeah, surprised like a naughty kid getting a lump of coal at Christmas. Not surprised at all, were we? We didn't get any surprised. We didn't get any surprises. Oh, Harry Maguire's signing for United. I never would have guessed that. Oh, Wan-Bissaka's signing. I never would have guessed that, Ollie. I'm really surprised at the quality of the players you're bringing in. It didn't happen. But we fell into the trap, and I think in the summer, Emre Can was mentioned, and I went, get lost. I also said get lost about John McGinn. I hate myself for that. I really wish we'd signed John McGinn. He's so much better than what we've got. And Gareth Bale, I was like, forget it. I don't want Gareth Bale. Forget it. And I look at it now, and I go, I'd take McGinn, Can and Bale, because they're better than what we've got. And we've suddenly gone for a team that should be fighting for top 4 to a mid-table club. So for anybody who says to me, why would you take Bale when you said no in the summer? Why would you take Emre Can when you said no in the summer? It's quite simply because where we were in the summer to where we are now, I never envisaged we were going to drop off a cliff like that to be a mid-table club. So yeah, I would take Emre Can. I think that the Liverpool connection is not desirable, but let's not forget, he left Liverpool. They didn't sell him. He was out of contract. He wanted to go. It's not worked out at Juventus. He's better than every midfielder that we've got. He's still only in his mid-20s. He's a German international. We'd probably get him quite cheap. I don't see the problem with it. Beggars can't be choosers, so I would take Emre Can, and I think he's available in the summer, so in January. So I would do it. I would do it. And I know it's controversial, but whoa, hold on a minute. Stop telling me I'm negative. And then when I try and find us a way out with a good deal, you're like, oh, you're being ridiculous now. I think beggars can't be choosers. Daniel Tarrant says, we need players who are 100%, but the problem I've got is you can spend all the money you want, but if the coaches can't coach players to be better, what's the point? Well, this is the path we're going down, Daniel, and it's not really the path I want to go down on the show tonight. I don't want to get it into, Ollie here or not, because I think it's very clear from the club that they're going to stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But you're absolutely spot on. If you have a situation, which we do at United, where they're going to adamantly stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you can give him all the players you want, and you can say that you've changed the club and the mistakes of the past won't happen. But if you're letting a manager that's not good enough buy players, we don't know how good Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is at recruiting players. We're all assuming he's good, but I think the signings he's made are obvious. And let's not forget, for everything positive he did in the summer, he's also admitted he chose not to sign midfielders because he was happy with what he got. That, for me, is ridiculous. Because he couldn't get Sean Longstaff. Sean Longstaff. I mean, Jesus Christ. He's hardly ripping up the world, is he? He's not even that good, Longstaff, but that was the obsession that Ollie had in the summer. That was the player that was going to help us out. We'd still be where we are with Longstaff, let's be honest. Mark, I just saw Arsenal play. We were awful, boring to watch, as bad as you guys. Very interesting story, Zane. And Ray Cowley says, not a probably Jantra window, but your thoughts on Thomas Muller. Is he a signing we need, or just again a marquee signing if done? Ray Cowley, Thomas Muller I don't think will come to United, but Thomas Muller reminds me of Rakitic and of Mandzukic, and there's a warning with Schweinsteiger. Why would you bring an ex-great player on the decline into the Premier League when they're over 30? They will suffer. And everyone will say, well, look at Zlatan. But Zlatan suffered because of the Premier League. He did his bloody knee in. And he was slow. He was slow. People played a high line. So I wouldn't go with Muller. Nick P says, why have one Longstaff what you can have two? I would love to see a McMayo in a Longstaff sandwich in midfield. Let's sign them both. I hope that's sarcasm. I hope it is. So yeah, Emre Can is a player that I wouldn't mind. Mike Burton, I've seen you on comments before. You're really just not a nice person, are you? See you, goodbye. And I saw your comments this afternoon on my video. You're just a bit of a knob, really, aren't you? Kevin Barrett says, although 30, Herrera was the leader we needed. Mike was just saying that it's the Ollie hate hour, which is quite interesting because we've just spent half an hour talking about transfers and there's been very little talk about Ollie. There's been realism. There's been realism about the situation we're in and the fears that we have, but it's not been an Ollie hate hour, so he can jog on. Herrera was proven in the Premier League, Kevin Barrett, as well, wasn't he? I need to get on to Richarlison. Anaban Sakar Metal Punch Studio says, we should sign Timo Werner next summer and get Mandzukic, Emre Can and Fabian Ruiz this January if possible. Bring Erik ten Hag as manager. I mean, Timo Werner... let me just talk about Richarlison. I think Richarlison is, out of the 5 players we've been linked to, Mandzukic, Haaland, Emre Can, Madison, and then Richarlison. I think Richarlison is the most left field one. He has been playing up front for Everton, but again, he's not really... He's good, but I would say Lukaku was a better signing from Everton than Richarlison, and he didn't work. I don't see Richarlison... And Everton spent a lot of money on him. I think Everton spent about 50 million on him, so they would want about 80 million for him. He's not an 8. I just think, write Richarlison off. 1, I don't think he's consistently good enough. 2, I don't think he's a top 4 player. And 3, he's only just gone to Everton, really. I think he's only in his 2nd season. And they would want about 80 million for him. So it's a no from me. It's a no from me for Richarlison. I think he's a really weird one. Looking at players beyond the 5 that have been mentioned in January... I mean, Timo Werner, I just don't think he'll come to United. I think his aspirations will be higher than that. I think his connections with Klopp and Dortmund will. I know he doesn't play for Dortmund, but I think Klopp has that German connection. I think he's more likely to go to Liverpool. James Freshwater says, I saw your face on Fake Taxi. You definitely didn't. I know what you're talking about as well. Beyond that, I think United are quite... If you want to predict United signings... There's evidence out there. Kai Havertz is not going to happen, Viper. We've already spoken about him. It's very easy to predict United signings. We've already spoken about one. Sean Longstaff is a player that United are obsessed with. I've watched him a few times. I'm going to hold my hand. I've probably watched him 3 or 4 times. he hasn't really played that many more than that in his whole career for Newcastle. But I just don't see a player there that looks anywhere near being a top 4 player in the Premier League. I don't. I really don't. So I don't get what that obsession's all about. But it would be if we sign him, I would obviously give him a chance and trust it and hope that our recruitment's good. But the unfortunate thing is, who is it that's got this obsession with Sean Longstaff at United? Because if it's a scout, well, it's not scouting that. Well, it's not proven to be that good, has it? So I don't like the look of that deal. Declan Rice seems to be a player that we like as well. I don't rate Declan Rice. I think he's slow. I don't think he's what we need. I think we need somebody like an Ndidi who is quicker across the ground. You can say what you like about Fred and McTominay, but I do like the fact that they are quick across the ground. I don't think Declan Rice is quick enough, and I think he's well overpriced and overhyped. And then really you're into the unknown, aren't you? But I think with United, always just look at the British players. I do like John McGinn. I mean, talking about British players, I do like John McGinn. A reason I like John McGinn is that he's proven himself in the Premier League. In the summer when we were linked to him, I was like, he's a Championship player who's come down from Scotland. Since he's come into the Premier League, I've watched him probably about 4 or 5 times, like Longstaff, and he's energetic, he's box to box, he likes to tackle. He sort of reminds me of a Poundland Roy Keane when we got Roy Keane, and there's nothing wrong with being a Poundland Roy Keane, because Roy Keane was an absolute Ferrari. He was boxed when he first came to United. He was all action, box to box, got in people's face, and John McGinn reminds me like that. And he's never going to be Roy Keane, because Roy Keane's one of the best players United have ever had, and one of the best players the Premier League's ever had. He's not going to hit those heights, and also I think he's 25, isn't he, McGinn? But I still think he could be a decent player for United. But again, you fall into the same problems with McGinn. Would Villa sell him? Villa are probably going to be fighting relegation, much like Leicester. Leicester are going to be fighting for top 4. Villa are going to be fighting relegation. Leicester won't want to sell anyone because they want to see that through to May and see if they can get top 4. And Villa won't want to sell anyone because they want to see it through till May and stay in the Premier League. It's worth more money to them. And especially from Villa, if you get relegated, the amount of money you can make by staying in the Premier League, you know, United would have to offer silly money for McGinn. So again, he's another player that wouldn't happen till the summer. Joe and Daniel says, none of these signings will let us play the 4-1-2-3 that we need. We need a mobile CDM for Christ's sake. It's appalling that the board can't see that. Look, it's appalling that the board can't see a lot of things. It really is. It's appalling that the board can't see a lot of things. Because with Manchester United, we've been on about the midfield for over a decade, really. Even Sir Alex Ferguson never really invested in the midfield, and that was through the Glazers. No value in the market. But our midfield recruitment's been really, really poor at United. I think the last decent midfielder off the top of my head that we signed that did well was probably Carrick in the mid-2000s. You know, Schweinsteiger, Schneiderlin. I mean, Herrera did quite well, to be fair. And I'm probably missing somebody glaringly obvious. I mean, Fred's not done well, has he? Pogba's been inconsistent. So we've always struggled with the midfield. But the funny thing is, when you look at United's last 6 years, the midfield is where games are won and lost, isn't it? Ray Cowley, what's the story about Bayern former manager? Can't remember the name. Is he a possible manager or a director of football as he has a link with us? Kovac, I doubt it, Ray. What about Ruben Neves? Says Franco Riva. Again, I mean, Ruben Neves is a player that gets mentioned a lot. I've seen Ruben Neves play a few times and I've never been impressed. And I was talking to Flex about this the other week, actually. He went to watch Wolves play a couple of weeks ago because he got invited up by somebody he knows. And they sat watching Ruben Neves and he said, yeah, he's okay. He doesn't grab older games. He's okay. He's better than what we've got, but he's not definitely a top 4 player, and he's not definitely going to be a superstar. And also, I don't think he'd come to United. I don't agree that George Mendes has a good relationship with United, and that's who his client is. And again, why would Wolves sell? So, you know, maybe in the summer that can be a deal, but I don't know. I believe Ollie turns this around, and in 5 years we can win the title, says Visions. I don't want to wait 5 years, mate. I don't want to. My issue is, why have we dropped to the levels that we are? Why have we become... I've said this a few nights ago, I'm sorry to repeat it, but at what point did we go from sacking Mourinho because we weren't near top 4 to being a mid-table club? we've dropped. In the space of 8 months, we have totally rewritten what Manchester United Football Club is. We used to be a club that won titles. Then we were a club that was fighting for top 4, and now we're a club that's mid-table. We're dropping, and people want to be patient with that, but we are dropping like a bloody stone. Zakaria looks a good signing. Delphin Owino, he looks a good player. Very energetic midfielder, but there's nothing really linking to him. Again, he's the sort of player that fans will identify, because fans have got a far better knowledge of football than they probably did 30 years ago. But it doesn't, I mean, United scouting needs to do a lot better. It's like the person said about James Madison. He's a decent player, but he's going to cost about 80 million in the summer, and you could probably get somebody as good as Madison for 40 million from Europe. But that's where scouting comes into play. You know, City need a right back. They've brought Danilo in. They've tried him. They've brought Cancelo in. You know, they're not just looking in Britain. They're not just looking at Brexit FC players. Liverpool went and got Salah. I know he'd played in the Premier League for Chelsea, but they went and got him from Roma. Firmino came in from Germany. Keita came in from Germany as well. So, you know, Liverpool and Man City, they will buy in the Premier League, but they're also pretty good and astute at buying players from the continent, which is something we've pretty much failed at for quite a while now. I mean, Martial was a brilliant signing from Monaco as a young player, but name me players over the last 6 years that United have bought from the continent that have done really, really well. Herrera's one again. He was well scouted. Pogba was an ex-United youth player, so it's not really scouting, is it? Zlatan was a flash-in-the-pan established world star, so there's nothing great about that. Schweinsteiger was a mistake. Fred, yeah, we're not very good at it. Mark, what are your thoughts on Raul Jimenez? Says Don Dorka. He's decent, but again, I just can't see him coming to Manchester United. 3-4-3, LCB, 20CB, Maguire stepping to defensive midfielder. Basaka, Dan James, Marcia. That's from Ali Albatar. I mean, what I would say, Ali, is that I can't understand for the life of me why people are saying we shouldn't have played the back four against Bournemouth and we should have played the 3-5-2 again. That 3-5-2 has not worked, but people are saying, I like the look of it. I'm seeing things in it that I quite like, and I wish we'd stick with it. All right, we played it against Liverpool. It worked for 20 minutes. They figured it out, and then we parked the bus. So that wasn't very good. We played it against Partizan Belgrade away from home, and it's the worst we've ever bloody played, so that wasn't good. And we played it against Chelsea, and we created next to nothing, and then we changed it to a back four, and then it was a good game. So there's your evidence for the 3-5-2. It actually hasn't bloody worked. So these people who say, I quite like the look of it, I think it's a good system, they clearly don't know much about football, because it's not been good to watch. In all 3 games we've used it, I'd say even 85% of the times we used the 3-5-2, it's been crap and boring. I'll put my hands up and say the 4-2-3-1 is pretty crap and boring. The only formation that Solskjaer's used that's been entertaining was the 4-3-3 he used when we played the first 3 months, which was actually a 4 holding midfielder, 2 box-to-box and 3 interchanging up front. We seem to have scrapped that. I don't know why, but that's the best formation for Manchester United. Yeah, definitely. There's some good players playing for Ajax, Frositas, and we should be looking at them because they'd quite like. I don't see why they wouldn't want to come to Manchester United, really. I really liked her. I thought Alex were brilliant last night. Sally Devil Red 7, to be honest with you. Ollie just needs time, says Adam Lana. And he'll get time. He will get time. And I know we're all sarcastic about that, but I think we're just... You know what? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to get time. And there is nothing more I can say about that. He's going to get time. So, you know, if you're Ollie out, you're going to get high blood pressure. And if you're going to give him time, we'll wait and see what happens. My problem is... And do go and watch the press conference reaction that I did at 2 o'clock this afternoon, because some of you won't see it. Some of the quotes that were coming out, it's like they're living in a different planet. Oh, we've got a great squad. Ollie's like the next Sir Alex Ferguson. That's Alice from Ashley Young. You know, we've just been a bit unlucky. We are where we deserve to be. We're a mid-table team. I hate saying it, but that's where we are. Would you look outside the box to the Middle East or Australia, says Ray Cowley. Look, if you've got a good enough scouting system, then there are good enough players to go and get. Ziyech was brilliant last night against, and he was brilliant in the first game against Chelsea, so he can do it against Premier League opposition. And Craig Bannister's right, Van der Beek is brilliant as well. So I would look at those players. Of course I would. Definitely. Anyway, link in the video description for Football Index. If nobody's ever had a go at this before, I've not mentioned it for a while, but I can show you my portfolio. The way the Football Index works, it's a game where you can buy stocks in players, real life players, and their prices will go up based on their performance on the pitch and their transfer and news is in the news in the press. So as you can see, that's my portfolio. I've got Martial, I've got Greenwood. Greenwood's made me 126 since I bought him. I think he's the best player I've actually purchased. And as you can see, the only player that I'm losing money on is Ronaldo. And I build a portfolio up like that. So I just wanted to make just show you some of the players that we've been linked to. Haaland is in here, Erling Braut Haaland. So he is currently trading in at 329, and over the last 6 months his price sort of started off at £3.10. He went up as high as 350 and it's stabilising a bit. I'm actually going to buy myself why is that not working? Oh, let me just log in. I'm going to buy myself 10 shares in him because I think his price will go up. And I also just want to take a little look at James Madison because, again, he's performing well on the pitch and he is a player that will be leaving Leicester, I would imagine, very, very soon in the next sort of year. So he's trading at 466. So that shows you that if Haaland's trading at 322, just the sort of growth Haaland's got, if James Madison's price is going up there. So in the last month, he's gone up from just under let's have a look, last 6 months. In the last 6 months, he's gone from under £2.50 to £4.50. So what I would say is if you're going to play the Football Index, go in with about 20 quid as a starting point so that you can buy enough shares in a player to make it worthwhile, because I'm going to buy myself 5 shares in, I'm going to get 10 in Madison. Confirmed by there as well. So links in the video description for, you can see your live comments and Alec Baldwin. Links in the video description for Football Index. Give it a go. I really do enjoy it. I've been doing it for about a year now and my profit is about 500 quid. I know somebody who's been doing it and they've got like 5 grand. It depends how much you put in and how much you know about football. But basically, it's a bit like Ultimate Team or Fantasy Premier League. If you've got a knowledge of players, their price is going to go up based on performance and transfer news. That's basically how it goes up. So if they're performing on the pitch, their price will go up. And if they're going to make a move or they're going to leave or they're going to sign a contract, their price may go up as well. So links in the video description if you want to give it a go. And the good thing about Football Index is, unlike a traditional bet where you might bet a tenner on United winning and lose it because they don't win, if you've got, say, 20 quid's worth of shares in Haaland and he starts to drop off a little bit and you see it dropping off, you're only going to lose a few pence on each share and you can just offload it and then put that money into something else. It's a game really, but it is gambling, so you must be over 18 if you want to play it. Links in the video description for that, but give it a go. We need to invest a lot of money, and we should. I wouldn't care to invest 150 million in Kante and 400 in Mbappe if that's going to take us to the top again. We're never going to spend that sort of money, Franco Rivener. And Lukaku's banging goals, Smalling form is strong, the pace super at Lyon, Blind super for Ajax, and Alexi looked okay before injury. Why this many players get better after leaving us? Is it recruitment's fault? Well, Kevin SP has raised a very good point there. The amount of United players that go off and do quite well, but then again, you know, is Herrera playing for PSG? Is Schneiderlin doing well for Everton? You know, there are players that have left and have not done well, but it could be a coaching issue. It could be. Please do smash a like on the video. Really enjoyed the video tonight. I think, you know, the community is really, really good in relation to transfer news. You get real opinions in there, and I think there is that lack of trust in United in relation to transfers after the summer we've just had. And I am very sceptical. I think they made a big mistake in the shareholders meeting when they said transfer news generates speculation and interest. I always think that now. Every morning when I look at the papers and I see United linked with a Sancho or a bloody Mbappe or something, I think, or a Bale, I just think they're just doing this to generate positivity, because what's going on really is a mess at the club. But we will see. We will see what happens. Give a go to Football Index if you're over 18. See what sort of portfolio you can build up. Thanks for Sanjiv saying it's a great show. Really enjoyed it. Please do smash a like on the video on the way out. Subscribe subscribe if you're new. Have a pop on Football Index if it's available in your country. And I'll see you tomorrow. Remember, we're playing tomorrow night, so it'll be interesting to see what team he goes for. If you want all the details for that, check out the preview I did this afternoon, predicted 11, and all the reaction to Solskjaer's press conference. A really interesting views on that as well. Speak to you soon.